What is it about Lord of the Rings dwarves, and why are they so cool? Why do I want an army of even smaller versions of them? How is it that I never get bored of the same old dwarven tropes? And how long exactly did it take me to set up all of these camera angles? Ages. It took ages. Today I want to start work on my Middle-earth dwarven army, and I've got a very particular army in mind. It's Balin's expeditionary force, because I'm obsessed with the whole idea of Balin's doomed campaign into Moria and the reclaiming of Khazad-dûm. So let's do this. Holy...
Have you done it already?
Yeah, sorry. And here they are, Balin and Floi, flanked by their commanders. And I'm going to remove them from their normal bases so that I can do some fun work on those later. And I've put them on these temporary bases so they're still easy enough to paint. Annoyingly, before I decided to do this video, I did all the clipping and scraping and sanding. It's fine cast, it's a nightmare. Then I started to think about what kind of colour scheme I'd want for my Balin's expeditionary force. But first, I need to prime them in matte black. Here they are, they're primed. And while I was waiting for them to dry, I made some final choices on my complete colour scheme. I'm going to start by dry brushing on all of the metal, starting with lead belcher. So here I'm looking to get all of the axes and spearheads and chainmail. I like to do all of the metal dry brushing before anything else because it's quite messy. Now using Retributor armour to do all of the gold bits. There's far more gold on Floi because he's got this whole sort of gold scale armour thing going on. Impractical, but looks great. Now with a lighter gold, I'm dry brushing over the top of all the bits I've just done in Retributor armour. Now moving on to the other dwarves, and there's all sorts of bits of gold trim and details on shields that I'll need to do as well. Look at this guy, he's an absolute legend. I just think he looks sick. Something about the sculpts, the pose they've used is perfect, and he's a joy to paint. So this guy's got a cool horn, and it got some gold rim to do, and some details on his helmet as well. And there were also little bits of scale armour in need of some golding up. Now moving on to the banner bearing commander, and he's got these really cool bird insignias, don't know what they are, ravens probably, ravens of Erebor, and also Balin's crown, and we've got a bit of trim to do as well as some details on his axe. So that is the gold done on all of them. And now it's time for some cheeky washes and some sultry music. We're using a mix of Agrax Earthshade and Reichland Fleshshade to do all of the gold parts. It just gives it a really rich, deep tone. I don't know why, but I always enjoy painting gold, and especially when you get to the part when you put the washes over the top. I know that working with non-metallic metal, you get to have a lot more control, but this is a nice, easy way to get a good result out of true metallic golds. Now it's time for some Drakenhof Nightshade, and we're going to create a sort of cold metal look, and this will pop against the gold really nicely. So we're going to work on all of the metal surfaces we've already done, and I'll repeat this across all of the dwarves. I've used this cold metal technique on all of my other dwarves, and I want them to feel like they fit in with those, and I also just really like the look. Now we're going to use Cantor Blue to paint the raised areas on this banner. I'm going to use the same blue on this guy's shield and also his inner cloak. And you can see already that's popping really nicely against the gold. Nice gold blue pop. Love it. Love it! Come on! You've got to love it. Now I'm going to use Baraknar Burgundy to do the lower areas of the flag. and also the outer cloaks on all of the dwarves. I'm using Barracknar as my base because I want my shadows to have a sort of dark burgundy colour, but we're going to be moving up towards a vibrant red. I'm looking forward to painting all of these cloaks because, as you know, I love painting a good cloak. And now it's time to get down with the brown and use the Steel Legion drab to paint all of the brown bits on the banner guy. Now I'm moving up towards a more vibrant blue, focusing on all of the lovely detail in this banner and raising up some feeling of highlights, using the idea that the sun is coming from above, so we're always keeping that in mind, moving further and further up to a really light blue. The light blue I'm using is LOTR blue. Now moving on to Mephiston red, I'm going to start doing the same but moving up to brighter and brighter reds, just like this. And we can start to see the cloak and banner coming together really nicely now. I started to enjoy the blue and red and gold pop, but at this point this old brush, although it has served me well, has lost its point and I was starting to struggle, so I got this new Hobby Heaven Series 1-0. But the question is, was it worth it? Basically, yeah. Patreon is a way to support me and support this channel. I'd like to make more videos like this. And if you enjoy them, then it's a really good way to do so. It gives you access to behind the scenes stuff. You'll also get your name mentioned in every video, plus loads and loads and loads more. I'll even do a magic spell or two, or probably. I mean, they might work. The potency varies depending on, whether it's a Wednesday, every other year, a leap year. But I know what you're thinking. You want one of these dope wizard hats, don't you? Custom made. Well, the good news for you is I know who makes these. Carbon Upcycle made this to my exact requirements, and they can also make you one of these to your exact requirements. I'll put a link to that in the description, and you could have your very own wizard's hat. Leviosa. No, that's the other one, isn't it? Kramin Davros Kambin. The curse of Bobros upon thee. Crumby. Magic. Frumby. Skarnak. Bith Barmin. Bilbin Barmin. The answer is, of course, yes. It did make a massive difference. Having a brush with a point and just a cleaner brush in general meant that I was able to do some detail work and do some pretty cool fades on this shield. And to be honest, I was quite happy with this guy at this point. I used Corax White to start doing his beard and all of the hairy stuff. And I did the same for Balin. Balin's beard was actually quite annoying to work with. The details are actually fairly smudgy, to be honest, and I was using a sort of edge highlighting technique that worked fine. Floi was far easier to do, to be honest. I think it's the metal miniatures I just think have a sort of cleaner, sharper detail than the fine cast. At this point, it was time to do some more beards and buckles and things. So it's time to get down with brown again and work on all of the things that I just said I was going to work on. I started using a warm off-white to highlight up this beard. And I did a slightly less bright version of it on this guy's beard. I'm going to call him Michael. Very dwarven name. Now moving back to Floi and doing all of the brown on him. So that's the boots, the staff, the book. Now I'm going to use Wildwood Contrast to darken down all of those brown bits and pull out some of the detail on the book. So we're going to be moving up to a warm white with that in a moment. And here we're going to use the brighter brown again and start working up some of the details on the staff as well, so little scratches and things like that, and the edges. And now I'm getting brighter and brighter with the brown. Now we're going to use a shabty bone to do all of the pages of the book and these little edges of cloth under his scale armor. And also this little bit of rag banner coming from his staff. I don't know what it is. Now we're going to go a step brighter with wraithbone on all of the pages, banners and bits of cloth. Now we're going to use this ancient Reichland flesh shade on the pages of the book and all of the other bits of cloth. Now I've not used this holy white speed paint before, but I'm going to use that on all of the white hair and beards. First on Floi and now on Balin. It seems to work really well. And now I'm making Balin's beard a little bit brighter by putting back in a cold white again. And then doing the same for the banner guy. Now we're going to brighten up Floi's hair and beard. And now using a warm white to do all of the bits of the banner and brighten up this guy's beard, decided to make it a little bit more ginger. Now we're going to be making all of the cloaks pop by going up towards a bright orange in the highlights, that is. Obviously we don't want to put too much orange in there, it wants to still appear red. This makes a big difference, I think. And I'll be doing this technique across all of the other dwarves as well, but I wanted to show you on Balin and Floi. And here's how it came out on a couple of the other dwarves. Love this guy, look at this. Now we're going to get fresh with some flesh and use Bugman's Glow to base all of the faces, starting with Floi. My boy Floi. I got a bit distracted here as I wasn't happy with the cloth, especially on this banner bit. Now back to flesh, we're using Cadian Flesh Tone and Vallejo Light Flesh and Bugman's Glow again. We're gonna slowly work up towards the lightest flesh tone, mixing all the way in between. That way we should get a pretty clean fade between all of the different shades of flesh. A flesh fade, if you will. Then I used Mechanicus Standard Grey to highlight Balin's black gloves. Now back to Wraithbone to paint this guy's horn. I'm going to call him Henry. Now we're going to use this Reichland Flesh Shade to wash over the horn. So what about those bases? Using some green stuff, I wanted to sculpt the floor of Moria. Floria. So I decided to get their original bases, flatten down the green stuff onto them. I had this dwarven terrain hanging around from the last couple of videos, and I decided to try and imprint some of the patterns onto the green stuff bases. This worked pretty well. I had to be careful putting isopropyl on any of the terrain, so I actually used vinegar. Seemed to work quite well and stop the green stuff from getting into the details of the terrain. Everything did stink of vinegar though. Now I primed this using this Vallejo primer, just painted it on. This tends to come out a bit shiny, so I painted over it with this much more matte black. Looks good now. Now it's time to dry brush on some grey. I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade to add some weathering. We're not going to use the usual leopard spotting method. You don't really find that kind of thing in underground masonry or rock faces. Now dry brushing some Ashabti bone. Now Rhinox hide to add a bit more brown, then making it brighter again with Corax white. Now using a dark wash to bring back some of that detail. Time to remove these dwarves from their temporary bases. Balin basically fell off his tab, so then I glued him to this one. And I did the same with all of the other dwarves and their bases. Most of them were easy. Floi was definitely tougher because he was metal, but eventually I got through his tab. And here he is, ready to go on his base. But how did it turn out? Do you know what? I'm quite happy with these dwarves. I think Balin could be a little bit better, especially his face. Floi, I'm very happy with Floi. I'm happy with Henry Hornblower. I still think that this guy is my favourite one. I think I made some real leaps with his shield and his cloak. And I was quite happy with the banner guy, quite tricky to do, but I think he's come out quite well. And this guy is pretty cool. He's fine. He's pretty, yeah. Most of all, it was really cool to finally have some command for my dwarven army. I know the rest of them will need rebasing, but I'll save that to a later time. If you're digging the dwarven vibes and you want to see more of that kind of thing, then you can click on these two videos here.